Huh. Hey, everybody. How's it going? I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com, and let me get my hair out of my face. And you're watching Phone Dog Live on Ustream. This is our live show, hence the name Phone Dog Live. Clever, I know. I came up with it myself. It was a huge marketing initiative, and I wanted to make sure we picked the correct name. So I'm thinking, okay, Phone Dog, and we're going to be live. And then the genius mind that I have, boom, Phone Dog Live. That's true story. That's exactly how it happened. Okay, so we're live on Ustream right now, and as well as Facebook. If you like watching this on Facebook, we're there too, but it's still streaming from Ustream. And then this is also on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, hi, how's it going? Glad you could be here. We have. Quite a few big topics to talk about. Not a whole lot of. It wasn't really a busy week. I'm just going to put it that way. Not a whole lot happened this week. I think anytime Apple does something big, all the other, manufacturers and carriers are like, well, there goes our news week, because they kind of know. But, so maybe that's not how it happens, or, maybe it's just a coincidence that no one else did anything this week besides Apple. So obviously we're going to talk about that. AT&T did some stuff that pissed people off. Surprise, surprise. And then some more news about RIM, and then we have a couple of reviews and dogfights that I want to talk about that we might not get to. It kind of just depends on how everything goes. So, also, on a side note, if you're watching this on Ustream and you see the little note at the top, first person to bring me a latte seriously gets $10. Not really, though. I mean, I'm not serious, but, it would be nice. I would really like to have a latte right now. Anyway, I'm just kidding. So how about we just go ahead and get started with Apple. Apple, nice, from Ustream. Apple did something? Yes, yeah, Apple did something this week. It was sort of big, we kind of knew about it. It was their education event, and they introduced iBooks 2, iBooks Author, and iTunes U, the iTunes U app for the iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch. So this is all about textbooks, basically. I mean, it's three different apps, three different software, but it's all about e-textbooks on the iPad. And I'll tell you kind of like the gist of everything that happened, but then we're going to basically talk about could this actually happen. So iBooks 2, obviously an update to iBooks, and it brings support for textbooks and, digital textbooks that include interactive elements, video, multi-touch gestures, and note-taking, so you can highlight text, you can take notes, you can easily create study cards, note cards, like, trivia cards. You can kind of have a definition and then turn it over. And for the books, I'm looking at my notes and I was like, where am I? Okay. So for books, obviously, because you need, textbooks, they partnered with Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, McGraw-Hill, and Pearson, which those three firms are responsible for 90% of all textbooks. So basically, we're going to have a lot of textbooks. Each book will cost $15 or less, which is a big drop from currently every book is like $75 to $100. So now they'll only be $15. iBooks 2, the app is free, just like iBooks, and it's available in the App Store. iBooks Author is where you can create these textbooks. And it's actually extremely simple. You can download it from the App Store. And so I did that on my Mac. I downloaded it, just kind of see, is it really that easy? Because obviously when they do demos, everything works in a demo. So I wanted to see if it was really that easy. So I did, and it's really that easy. They have different templates. I think there was 6 different templates that had basically different styles. There was a modern style, a classic style, an art style that put a lot of focus on pictures and artwork. I think there was 6 different styles, and then it's a template, so the text boxes are already there. The subtitle or the subtitles, not the subtitles, the subheadings are already there. Titles, different spots for graphics if you want to add them. It's all already there, and of course you can like delete all of that and just start from scratch, but it's actually very, very simple to create a textbook, which on the one hand is like, I guess, great. Not that I never heard anyone complain about how difficult it was to create a textbook, but I guess just in case you were worried about it, it is now really easy to create a textbook. But then I was thinking, so like the whole process is very simple. The iBooks author app is, you create a textbook, you can write it all. It's very simple. You submit it to the store, and then it's, boom, in iBooks, the textbook section. And I'm like, so, like, can anybody just write a textbook and be like, yeah, this is like totally true. I mean, this is exactly how everything happened. And I think there'd be sort of a little concern over quality. Is it factual? Is it not? Is it unbiased? That was kind of one of the things I was thinking about, because I was like, if anybody can create a textbook, I would be a little worried. How do we know? How do schools pick out the ones that they want to use? Then I guess you could look at the publisher maybe. Apple said they are going to, review the textbooks and make sure that they should be submitted. So hopefully the review process will be, good, stringent. Let me get some moderators set just in case. Okay, so that's, iBooks Author, iBooks 2. The final item was iTunes U for the iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch. And this is like iBooks with the textbooks, but it kind of takes it to a whole other level, and it's more for universities, hence the name iTunes U. I know, creative. It's all about creativity here. So iTunes U, this is where you can really get college courses on your iPad, or iPod Touch, or iPhone. It includes the source material, the notes that you'll need, any videos of lectures, if there's any outside content. It will all be there in a schedule. You'll have the syllabus. You'll have everything you need to basically take this course from Stanford or Harvard if you want to. Again, my thing is like, so can anybody do this? Like, because like if I went to Stanford and paid $30,000 a year for tuition, I would be like, wait, so somebody can get this course on their iPad for like what, $20? I would be a little upset. But again, there's got to be something else that I'm missing. And obviously, if you go to a job interview, and you're like, yeah, I took this course on the iPad, it probably won't be, it won't give you as much credibility as, an actual degree. So anyway, that's the basic gist. You have the textbooks on the iPad, an easy way to create them, and then iTunes U. But there's a lot of questions with this, and, a lot of them are things that, a lot of people immediately thought of, and it's not to be, like bashing Apple or anything, but it's a nice idea, and I love it, and I agree with Taylor, who wrote an article. He said, this makes me want to go back to school again, because I think it would be so awesome to have an iPad in school, wanting to, and using that as your textbook. But, again, there's a lot of problems. I think it's a nice idea, but it's going to be very difficult for Apple to actually make this work. The biggest thing is pricing. I mean, so, school districts, they're already hard-pressed for money as it is with budget cuts. I mean, having to fire teachers because they don't have enough money to pay them. How in the world are they supposed to afford, an iPad for every single student when iPads are $500, even if they are given a discount, even if it's an extreme discount of $300 or $250, that's still more expensive than a textbook that's $75 to $100. And then on top of the iPad, you have to pay for the books, even though they're only $15, but I mean, that adds up. So that's kind of the biggest thing. And if it is just straight up, schools have to buy schools have to buy the iPads, or even if the school says, we really want to do this, but we can't exactly afford it. So, parents, if you can afford this, or maybe we'll subsidize it to you and kind of do it as a, lease to own type thing. Even if they do it that way, either way, it's still about money. And to me, the way I see it is only school districts that have money people that live in affluent areas are actually going to take advantage of this, because I just don't see, schools that are in the districts, or, have difficulty with money. I just don't see how they're going to be able to afford this unless they got the iPad each for like $100. I mean, literally, that's probably what it would have to be like. But then the other thing I think about is, okay, so, where does this start? Like, are you actually going to give a kindergartner an iPad? Because, again, money in the hands of a 5-year-old, I don't exactly know. I mean, these things aren't, what are they doing in first or second grade? I mean, there's a chance of it getting damaged, a chance of it getting lost, stolen. I mean, hello, it's an iPad. There's a chance of it getting stolen. Even if it accidentally gets damaged or dropped or something, I mean, that's, again, are they going to have to buy another one? I could kind of see some problems there. Another thing I was thinking about, sorry, again, I'm looking at my notes. Another thing that kind of like came into my mind was, okay, so like, just forget about money, like whatever, the world is perfect and everyone can afford an iPad. We'll just, take that dream scenario. So what about the other capabilities of an iPad? I mean, iPads, you can use it for web browsing, social networking, gaming. You can do all kinds of stuff with an iPad. And I mean, how are they going to keep kids from not doing those things in class? I mean, I'm sure there's a measure of protection where you maybe disable those features, maybe disable the web browsing, or because they can do those with computers. I mean, I remember when I was in school, like almost everything was disabled. There was no way around it. And so, I can understand, or maybe you had to have a password, or some kind of protection like that. But again, it wasn't touched on, so we don't know. I mean, how are the schools supposed to take care of that? And then, so, say, all right, they figure out a way to keep kids from, browsing the web or using social networking or gaming. Well, then you're paying however much it is, $500, $300, $200, to use the product for only one thing. I mean, the iPad, one of the things that, Apple pushes about it is that it's so amazing. It can do all this wonderful stuff. And, in the App Store, there's 500,000 apps, or over 500,000 apps. But, to pay to use it for only one thing, I mean, there's a question of, is it worth it when you talk about education? Yes, obviously it's always worth it. But again, we live in the real world where money is a factor. And I can't imagine paying $500 for something to use it for one thing when, again, going back to it could get lost or damaged or stolen. So that was, again, another thing that I was thinking about. And then kind of just a last minute thought that I had was, like, okay, I know tablets, they push them a lot because you can use them for ebooks and reading. And, I have a tablet and I can get books on it. But, like, seriously, come on. Reading a book on a tablet or a computer screen is, like, the worst thing in the world. I mean, it's going to burn your freaking eyes out. And, like, I'm not trying to be, I know, like, basically the past 15 minutes have just been negativity by me, but these are just concerns that I had. So I'm not trying to just intentionally be negative about the whole thing, because I know education is extremely important. I'm just saying, kids who have to read, basically all night. I remember in high school, and we had to read entire chapters that were 30 pages long with tiny text, and reading for that long on just an LCD panel. I mean, it really like hurts your eyes. It's nearly impossible to do. So that was kind of another thing that I thought of. All in all, like I said, I think it's an awesome idea. I would. Putting all of that aside, I would still love to have an iPad in school, where I can use it, where it's from the school, and, not just have it in school because they'll probably take it away from you, but, it's from the teachers, you use it for education. I think that would be awesome. And, one of the great things is that it probably will motivate students to listen, or, at least read the material. Not just the fact that it's more interactive and you're using an iPad so it's fun, but you probably get more out of it. I mean, it's probably a lot more interesting whenever you have a video or whenever you have, a 3D model that you can, move around, not just for the sake of keeping their attention, but for the fact that that it will actually be more helpful than just static text or, static pictures. So I love the idea and I think it's awesome. It's just, these are just my concerns. I just don't see how every school will be able to afford them. And, if it is going to just be, the schools that have enough money to afford them, then it's not really any purpose at all because, those kids probably have enough money to go to, Harvard or wherever they want to go. So an education is really, it's easy for them. They don't need an iPad to learn. It's the ones who don't have money that are really struggling. But, a lot of these aren't roadblocks. They're just unnecessary, or not unnecessary, they're just unanswered questions. Things like, with iBooks Author, can anyone create a textbook now and say that it's fact? That will get solved, I'm sure. I'm sure there will be a review process. We just don't know about it right now. Or things like pricing, that's just an unanswered question. We don't know how it's going to work. And it may be because it will be different for every school district. Maybe Apple will have, different contracts or, just different deals for, depending on the size of your school district or how much money you have. So a lot of it's just unanswered questions, but they're big questions. And I think, a lot of people have been asking them. I do hope that it catches on. I am. Because, like I said, I just think it would be extremely cool. If you guys haven't seen the keynote, you can watch it. It's on Apple's website now. They also have the video, of course. And, it's amazing that Apple does this. You think it'd be so simple that any company could do this, and maybe they could. Maybe they just don't think it's great marketing. But the fact that Apple can make everything so freaking emotional, like, you're watching, they created a video that's in the keynote, but it's also a separate video on Apple's website about it, because they always do that for every product. They create a video for it. And so, it starts off talking about education and teachers and how much they love teaching and why they love it and, the connection that they have with their students. And it's like, it's so emotional. It's like you just want to cry because of all the problems and the setbacks they're having. But to me, it's just so amazing that Apple is able to do that with every single thing that they come out with. The iPad, I mean, genius to have the thing with where if you're deaf or maybe your grandparents, you never get to see them. Like those scenes, it touches your heart, and it's amazing. Anyway. That's iBooks. Lots of unanswered questions, but hopefully they'll get answered. And I was thinking, maybe this is not what it will be. Maybe this is not just, okay, boom, textbooks on the iPad, that's it for the next 50 years. Maybe this is just the start. We just need digital textbooks and Apple decided to start the revolution or whatever. I cannot believe I just used that word. But, we had to start somewhere. So maybe this is just the start and then we'll get better with, technology that isn't as expensive or tablets with e-ink technology so it doesn't burn your freaking eyes out. Maybe this is just a start. We can get better from here. But I think it's a great idea. I just want to see if it's actually realistic. Moving on to some bad news, I guess. I didn't really think this was bad news. AT&T's new data plans. This has caused a lot of ruckus, a lot of uproar, which is surprising because I didn't think it was a huge thing. Like I wasn't going to talk about it. When I first saw the news story, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. But a lot of people are upset about this. AT&T's changed their data plans or introducing new data plans. So currently, and these are taking effect January 22nd, which is in 2 days. Yeah. So currently you can get 200 megs for $15, 2 gigs for $25, and then a tethering plan with 4 gigs for $45. That's the tier data. That's what it is right now. Well, with the new data packs, you'll go from 200 megs to 300, so you get an extra 100 for $20. So it goes up $5 to get 100 more megs. The 2 gig plan will go up to 3 gigs for $30, so again, 5 extra dollars. And then the 4 gig plan will go up to 5 gigs, still with tethering, for $50, again, an extra $5. So, yeah, they're raising the prices $5, but you're also getting a lot of data. And this is something that I don't understand, because it's not like they just raised the price and then that was it. They raised the price and they also gave you more data. And again, you have to consider their motives. I mean, people want more data. That's something that we've complained about ever since tiered data came into existence. It was the fact that, well, maybe I need more than 200 megs, but I don't need 2 gigs. And so, like 200 megs is really just a very little amount. And so it's like, it's not enough, but 2 gigs is too much. So people wanted more data, or, they're on the 4 gig plan and they use tethering all the time, or they use tons of data. So they need more than 4 gigs. Whatever the case may have been, people wanted more data. And so AT&T is giving you more data, and yeah, you have to pay more for it. I mean, since when do you ever get more for free? Or, I mean, of course you're going to have to pay more for it. And $5 a month, I understand $5 is, yes, you can buy things with $5 and over a 12-month period, or, a 24-month period for the length of your contract. Yeah, it adds up, but I mean, everything adds up. You're paying $15 or $25 anyway, that adds up. It's $5 extra for more data. So I didn't really understand, and maybe you guys on Ustream can tell me if you are upset about this, why you're so upset about it, because to me, I think it's reasonable. I think it makes sense. Give people more data. It's what they want, and of course they're going to have to charge more for it. Also, new tablet plans. The new tablet plans are 3 gigs for $30 and 5 gigs for $50. So it's still tiered data, which I don't really like tiered data plans. I'm on a tiered data plan, and I don't really like it. But I'm with a carrier that doesn't charge overages, so it's not too bad. I mean, if I, like with AT&T, with their tiered data, if you go over, they charge you more. That I don't think I would like. But yeah, it's still tiered data, but it's the same problem of spectrum. There's just not enough spectrum to go around. People are using more and more data, and or data, or depending on how you say it, data or data. I say data. I guess it just depends on where you live. My husband is a Trekkie. This is totally off topic. I don't know. Anyway, he's a Trekkie, and so he the Next Generation. He's watched the originals, but his favorite is the Next Generation and Captain Picard. But anyway, so we were talking about Data one time, the character, and I called him Data, because I say that's how I pronounce the word. I pronounce it data, and he took it he took it offensively. It's like, it's data. Okay. Anyway, so depending on how you say it. Wow, nice. Good job, Sunny. We just keep on rolling. We just keep on going, depending on how you say it, data or data, it's tiered. It's still tiered data plans, but no, I mean, I think more data for paying more. I mean, I think that makes sense. I hate these data Nazis. Who are they to tell us how much of the internet we may feast on? Well, again, that would be an excellent argument if things like reality didn't exist. And the problem is that in reality, we have spectrum problems. There's just not enough. Their network is being clogged. And it's not just AT&T. It's Verizon. It's T-Mobile. I'm assuming Sprint, even though they're still doing unlimited, but I'm assuming that eventually, somewhere down the road, they're going to have problems. Virgin Mobile, they're going to start throttling the data for Virgin Mobile customers. It's Data, that's his name. I know, I learned that. Well, they own it, so they have the right to. Trekkie or Trekker. I always said Trekkie. Anytime someone was a Star Trek fan, I've always heard, the term Trekkie. But I don't know, Trekker, I'm not sure. I like Trekkie better. I've never heard the term trucker. Um, don't give their CEOs $50 million a year then. Why don't they invest in their own company and improve it for their customers? That's a good point. And I definitely agree with that. But being overpaid is a problem in several industries. Greed is generally, anytime there's a problem, greed is generally a factor. It's just one of those things. But anyway, that's that. AT&T's new data plans. If you're on AT&T, I guess I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it makes sense. But if you're upset about it, I apologize. Uh, so couple little tidbit things here. We have RIM, who is apparently turning tricks on the side, or trying to sell itself, is what I mean. According to BGR, Boy Genius Report, and of course we got an update on this story. We originally heard from Boy Genius Report that RIM was getting all decked out and putting on the red and trying to sell itself. Samsung was a company that came up that was either interested in buying them, or RIM was really going hard after Samsung. This is so wrong. I can't believe what I've turned this story into. But anyway, so so that's what we heard, that Samsung might buy RIM. Um, but then we got an update. Speaking to Reuters, Samsung spokesman James Chung has said that the company not only hasn't considered buying RIM, but that it isn't interested in such a purchase. He added that Samsung hasn't been approached by RIM about a buyout. So apparently it was either made up or just, false, maybe wrong information. Or maybe it is true and they just don't want it to get out in the open. I mean, that's a possibility. But either way, well, we heard about that. I don't know, Samsung buying RIM. That would be interesting. I can see the benefits, definitely. I mean, for RIM, pretty much anybody buying RIM would be a bonus right now. Samsung isn't really the only one that would make that scenario good, but I think kind of the interesting thing, and one thing that I was thinking about could this actually happen? Would it make sense? Samsung is very invested in Android, and not only that, but Windows Phone, and Samsung has its own operating system, Beta, whatever you call it, OS. So that's 3 operating systems, and Samsung has said before that they're not interested in going after another operating system because they don't really feel that they need to, and in reality they don't. They're leading the world, either one or two, or the top 3 spots in selling phones, and so yeah, I mean, they don't really need to go after RIM. So for Samsung, I don't really think it would have made sense. For RIM, like I said, for anybody to buy them, it would have made sense. It would have been great, but that was the last of that. Apparently, it wasn't true. Let me see. What time is it? It's only 4:30. Wow. I wish we had more news. So the Pantech Burst it showed up at PhoneDog this week. Aaron has that for review. And this was a quick one because it was just announced at CES like a week ago, and now it's already here. It's coming January 22nd. So this was one of the fastest, which is great because usually products are announced at CES and then we see it maybe a couple of months later, or if you remember with the Motorola, oh my gosh, what was that phone? Not the Razr, what phone am I thinking of? The Atrix. It was not the Atrix, but it was the other version of the Atrix, the Bionic, right? Okay, so the Bionic, that didn't come out for 8 months or something. So it's great that we're actually seeing this now within a week. But the Pantech Burst is really great, and I'm really excited about it because whatever you want to call it, whether it's a mid-range phone or a high-end phone, whatever you want to call it, it's a great phone. It has a dual-core processor, LTE, a Super AMOLED display, a decent 5-megapixel camera, front-facing camera. Just overall, it's a great awesome phone, but it's only $50 on contract, which is extremely cheap. And so, kind of the interesting thing about this, or why it's so exciting, is because, previously, all of the great Android phones were, at least $200. If you're on Verizon, all the great ones are $300. And, a lot of people just can't afford that, or you maybe don't want to afford that. So, a lot of us, we kind of got the impression that most of the Android phones that were being sold were low-end phones or mid-range phones that you can get for free or for $20. And they're not great phones, and so it was kind of tarnishing Android's reputation because people were getting a bad experience from a great OS. And but now, if the Pantech Burst can start a new era of Android phones where they can still be great, but inexpensive. And if you wonder, okay, well, how come Pantech can create a phone with a dual core processor, a Super AMOLED display, and it's only $50? Well, they did have to make some cutbacks. The hardware it's not made out of metal, it's made out of plastic. The camera, lens quality isn't excellent, though it was decent. If you see the HD video sample, it was amazing. For a $50 phone, it's the best I've ever seen. It can't compete with like the Droid Razr or the Galaxy S2 or iPhone 4S, but when you think, okay, I got this phone for $50, and then you see the video, it's amazing, and the audio quality is excellent. But still had to make some cutbacks there. So that's how they were able to make it so inexpensive. And then again, it's Pantech, so they kind of, I don't know, they always make inexpensive phones. So if other manufacturers can pick up on this and be like, okay, maybe we can cut some corners, not to put it in a negative way, but maybe the hardware doesn't have to be made out of metal or aluminum, or maybe the camera doesn't have to rival the best camera or a point and shoot camera, but maybe just solid dual core processor. Give it a nice looking display. Enough of these 320 by 240 displays. That's pathetic. Maybe just a decent display. Throw in LTE, because every phone is LTE now, so that's not even a huge deal anymore. And just make a good phone for a reasonable price. And if the Pantech Burst can start that, I think that would be so good for Android, because now people who walk into AT&T and only have $50, they can still get an awesome phone in the Pantech Burst. And you can watch the review, and it is a good phone. And Aaron said this a couple of times, that it may not be able to compete with the Galaxy S2 or other high-end phones, but for $50, it's definitely just probably hands down one of the best deals out there right now. Another thing, Pantech's UI, some people don't necessarily like it, and I think he made this point again, that for a budget-friendly phone, it's a fine enough UI. I think now that dual core processors are starting to become the norm, single core processors are starting to be called mid-range. Now that we're kind of blurring the lines between what makes a high-end phone and what makes a low-end phone, it's not necessarily about the processor anymore. It's more about display technology, or just maybe adding extra features. I just completely lost my train of thoughts. I have no idea where I was going with that. I don't even remember what sentence I just started. But anyway, what was I saying? Right, the UI. Okay, so I'm sorry. Focus. So I think, now that it's not necessarily about the processor, or it's not necessarily about the hardware, maybe now it's about the little things, maybe adding extra features, or maybe front-facing camera, or the UI. Maybe you get a more refined, high-end experience with more expensive phones, whereas on the mid-range phones, the UI is kind of a little less refined. So maybe that will become how we differentiate these phones. And Pantech's UI is it's definitely kind of, I don't want to say cartoonish, because a lot of people said that about TouchWiz, and still do maybe, but it is a little bit. It's kind of like a graphic T-shirt. It's cool, it's colorful, but it's not necessarily what you would see on Rodeo Drive or anything. So maybe that element is how we differentiate them now. But yeah, you can watch the Pantech Burst video review. Also, of course, the unboxing and the first impressions, and then the HD video sample is again on PhoneDog.com. I don't know if he's gonna do a dogfight. Probably could. There's definitely, AT&T is stepping up its game for Android phones, so maybe we'll see a dogfight. Speaking of dogfights, Aaron also did a dogfight with I have something in my eye and it's been bothering me for like the past 15 minutes, but I can't get it out. Okay, so speaking of dogfights, Aaron also did a dogfight between the Nokia Lumia 710 and the HTC Radar 4G. And this is a great dogfight. If you're on T-Mobile and you're trying to decide between these two devices, they're both Windows Phone devices. And they're really the only, well, T-Mobile also has the HD7, but, the most recent Windows Phone devices, these are the only two from T-Mobile. So if you're trying to decide, which one you should get, this is an excellent dogfight to watch because, honestly, they are so close. If you look at the spec sheet, there's not a whole lot of difference. The display, 3.8-inch display to a 3.7-inch display, it's like, a 0.1-inch difference. The Lumia 710, that display has clear black technology, so it does kind of give it an edge over the HTC Radar because colors are just more rich and deep, especially darker colors, the blacks. You can even see it in the video when going through the UI or looking at the keyboard. It is just so much darker, whereas on the Radar, it's almost gray in comparison. And like if you were to hold it separately, just by itself, the Radar, you wouldn't like notice it. You would think it was totally normal. But when you compare it to the Lumia 710, it was almost gray compared to parts that were actually black or darker or closer to black on the Lumia 710. Also on the Nokia, you have Nokia Drive, Nokia Maps, and that's a big bonus because, Windows Phone has, of course you have Bing Maps, which is a great maps application. I use it on Windows Phone, and it is a great maps application. But, as far as turn-by-turn navigation, Windows Phone is still kind of lacking there. I mean, they've made improvements, definitely, but it's still kind of lacking. And so with the 710, you get turn-by-turn nav out of the box with Nokia's Maps application. Now, I know that you can download navigation apps from the Windows Phone marketplace, and there are some good ones that are, $3 or $4. There's some that are like $20, but there's some good ones for $3 or $4. But you get it out of the box, and it's great. It's basically free on a great device. Then on the other hand, the Lumia 710 doesn't have a front-facing camera, whereas the HTC Radar does. If you were to compare, rear-facing camera quality, they're generally about the same. Aaron said that he got slightly better picture quality with the Radar, but again, generally about the same. So overall, very equal. It was a very good dogfight, but I think he declared the winner, the 710, and I think it was definitely a good pick because the Radar has better build quality, but the 710 doesn't look bad. I mean, it still is a good-looking device if you look at it. The clear black display, the colors they look great. Then again, you have Nokia Maps and Nokia Drive out of the box. So, but really, and he said this at the end of the dogfight, if you're comparing them, you're trying to figure out what to get. If one of them is, $50 or whatever, and the other one is free, get the free one, no matter whether it's the Radar or the 710, because they're both so great. Whichever one you can get for cheaper, that's the one that you should get, because really, you can't go wrong with either one. But still a good dogfight and a lot of good, information if you want to get more into the details of them. You can watch that dogfight up on PhoneDog right now. So that's pretty much it. Those are the topics, and hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll move. It's 4:40, but we'll move on early to the open Q&A. And so this is your chance to ask basically any question you like to ask. I'm on Ustream. I'm also on Facebook. If there's anyone on Facebook, there is. Okay, so I will be reading those comments. Just if you have any questions about any rumored devices or leaks or just whatever, not even about phones, I don't know, you can ask. Okay, do you think the Sidekick 4G will get gingerbread or ice cream sandwich? Um, I would be surprised if it got ice cream sandwich. I'm actually surprised it doesn't have gingerbread. Does a Sidekick 4G not have gingerbread? I'm surprised by that. But yeah, I would be surprised if it got ice cream sandwich, but like I said, I'm surprised it doesn't have gingerbread, so we'll have to see. We don't really have a lot of confirmation on when devices will get ice cream sandwich. We've heard from Samsung, HTC, I believe. We've heard like timetables like Q1 or Q2, but that's like a 3 month period. And so we really don't have any solid dates on any phones. So if you ask me about your phone, I'm probably going to say the same thing that I say to everyone else. Well, possibly Q1, possibly Q2, but we don't have any solid dates. So just so you know. When's Droid 5 coming out? Wow, the Droid 4 like just got announced, so I don't know. Um, I can't wait for iOS 5.1. My 4S has crappy battery life. Yeah, I've heard that experience or that people having battery problems a lot. So kind of interesting. Do you think the Samsung Note will come to T-Mobile? It's a possibility. It's a GSM device. Um, I really don't know. We haven't heard any solid rumors about that. So, I mean, if I had to guess, I would probably say no, just because, generally the way it goes in the US, very rarely do you get a device that goes to multiple carriers. The Note would probably be the one rare exception where that might happen, just because it's made by Samsung, and you had the Galaxy S and the Galaxy 2 that went to all of the carriers, except for Verizon that didn't get the Galaxy S2. But, the Note would probably be the rare exception that could do that, but for the most part, a device is released on AT&T and that's it, or released on T-Mobile and that's it. Very rarely do you see it on multiple carriers. Um, your thoughts on the rumors of the LG X3 quad core? Yeah, I just saw that. I wasn't able to read all about it, but still, a quad core phone. I think that's pretty awesome. LG, their phones to me are sort of like, I mean, it's not my least favorite, but it's also not my favorite. The hardware has never really been anything impressive. The UI is okay, but again, not my favorite, not my least favorite. It's just kind of like in that middle ground for me, just kind of stuck in limbo of, I don't hate it, I don't dislike it, but at the same time I don't really like it either. So, but still, I mean, quad core phone, yeah, definitely it's going to be awesome. I'm going to go to my basement and run a speed test on uh, the stream is like jumping around. It does this a lot, so I just missed that comment. Okay, why do we need quad core in a phone besides the geek factor? Well, with Android, it would definitely help. Dual core processors in an Android smartphone offers great performance, but I can see how a quad core processor would help even more. iOS does not need a quad core processor. Windows Phone definitely doesn't need a quad core processor. It doesn't really need a dual core processor, but I think it should get a dual core processor, and it will eventually. But Android definitely needs a quad core processor. Um, Sorry, I'm trying to scroll through while it's jumping around and not cooperating. Any news on the HTC Endeavor slash Edge? The last that we got was just that, yeah, the leaked name was originally the HTC Edge, and now it's been changed to the HTC Endeavor. But other than that, not much new stuff. I missed the singular logo. Okay, interesting. Um, Reading comments. Some good ones. Oh, let me check Facebook. I always forget about Facebook. You guys always get neglected. Okay, I didn't finish my question. Wow, Facepalm corrected question. Okay. Do you think the LG Revolution or the LG Esteem will get gingerbread? Let me see if I have that in my notes. Um, the Revolution is on gingerbread. That's what I thought. Um, at least that's what I have in my notes. LG Revolution 2.3. Um, Yeah. The Revolution is getting gingerbread or should have gingerbread right now. The LG Esteem, I'm not sure. When will we get Nokia maps for other Windows Phone? I don't know. And whenever Nokia and Microsoft first announced their partnership, they made it seem like Nokia Maps, Nokia Drive would be available for every Windows Phone. You could just go to the market and it would be there. And I haven't heard anything to say otherwise, but I keep checking the market and it's not there. So I'm like, is that going to happen? I would really like to see that. So I'm not sure, but I'm with you on that question. I would like to know the answer. I talk to Siri when I'm lonely. Okay. Um, Battery would last 10 minutes in a quad-core phone. Well, actually, NVIDIA's Tegra 3 quad-core processor, it's actually a lot more battery efficient than their dual-core processors, mostly just because of the architecture of the processor and the way that it runs in, managing how many cores it will use at one time, even, right down to which core it should use, whether, one of the four cores or basically kind of like the standalone backup core. It's actually very smart, and so at least NVIDIA's quad-core processor is more battery efficient. So I don't know if they're all going to be like that, but it would be nice. But I agree. Yeah, I mean, hopefully battery life won't be a problem, but I'm sure, if NVIDIA could figure it out, I'm sure everyone else will too. Hey, Sunny, will T-Mobile get the iPhone? Probably not. When do you think 5G will come? I don't know. Do you think the Xperia S will come to T-Mobile since the internals are basically the same as the Amaze 4G? I'm not sure. Let me see if I have any news on that. Yeah, I really don't know. I'm not sure. We haven't heard much about that. Um, what do you think? Oop, just missed it. What do you think would happen if Samsung named a product after an apple? Um, they could name it like the Samsung Fiji or the Samsung Honeycrisp or the Samsung. There's so many apples. Did you know there's like it's like 400 or 4,000 or something different kinds of apples. It's crazy, I know. Um, When's the next Ultimate Fanboy Showdown? I don't know. We planned that, just planned it. I didn't really know if I was going to do it multiple times. So I don't know if we're going to do it again. I might do it in a month or a couple of months. It kind of just depends. Aaron and I haven't really talked about it, so we haven't he hasn't said if he would like for me to do it again or if it trended well on the site. So I'm not sure. The Samsung Granny Smith has a ring to it. Yeah. Um, this is so annoying. The stream constantly just jumping all over the place. Isn't the Galaxy Nexus a Galaxy S2 for Verizon? No, not really. There's actually a lot of differences. The display is different. The Galaxy S2 has a Super AMOLED Plus display. The Galaxy Nexus has a Super AMOLED display. Now, it's an HD display. The resolution is HD, whereas on the Galaxy S2 it's not. Again, that's another difference. Also, it's a larger display, 4.65 inches. The camera, I believe, is also different. If I'm correct, it has a 5 megapixel camera. Also, it ships with, and just hardware wise, it's much different. The aspect ratio is different compared to the Galaxy S2. Ships with Android 4.0. There's actually a lot of differences. So no, it's not really, although, if you're on Verizon and you want the Galaxy S2 but Verizon doesn't have it, the Galaxy Nexus is the obvious choice, but it's not quite the Verizon version of the Galaxy S2. Is it me or does the three buttons on the new Nexus look weird? To me, it's sort of like a waste of an idea because they're pretty much like capacitive buttons. I mean, I can see some advantages because they can move around on the display. I can see that, or maybe you can have like different designs or the buttons will change depending on which app you're in or what kind of app. I can see some advantages, but for the most part, not really, because I'm like, they're basically like like when you look at it, it looks like just capacitive buttons. So, I don't know. I wish Verizon got the Galaxy S2. Okay, thanks. You're welcome. Um, how many steps do you think Windows Phone will need to get up to date with Android or iOS? Define up to date because um, I think in terms of features and performance, it's on par with Android and iOS. It's different. I mean, it doesn't have, dynamic widgets like Android does. It doesn't have, the notification system is different. The UI is different. It's very different from Android and iOS, but I don't think there's any catching up there. I mean, I think that's just, it's always going to be different. If you don't like live tiles, if you don't think they're rich enough, maybe with widgets you do get a lot more information. So maybe you don't think live tiles are good enough. I don't think that could ever really change. They may improve them a little bit, but for the most part, that's just one of the differentiating factors. So define getting up to date, because right now I think it is. It's just a matter of kind of working out some kinks. With certain apps, it does kind of run slow. Probably could expand the marketplace a lot more. Hardware selection, maybe once once it does have the capabilities for a dual core processor, 1080p HD video capture, in that sense, then yeah, I agree, that definitely could make it more on the same level of Android and iOS, but those are really not huge things. I mean, it doesn't really need a dual core processor, although like I've said a million times, I think it would be great and it should get that, but yeah, I don't really think it's not like so far behind that it's got years to go. I think it's right there. It can compete as it is. Okay, have you ever been to CES or MWC? I haven't. No, I wish I could go. Yes, please. Will you rap again for us? No, I'd have to write a rap. That rap actually took a while to write. That I did in the Dog Pounds a couple of months ago. It's hard to write a rap. It's not easy. Let me check Facebook. I haven't checked that in a couple of minutes. Okay. Okay, wrong question again. I meant ice cream sandwich. Okay, so the person that asked about the LG Revolution or the LG Esteem getting... Okay, so will the Esteem or the Revolution get ice cream sandwich? I'm not sure. We, again, like I said before, we don't have any solid dates for really any phone. We just have like kind of vague timetables. It doesn't matter the amount of cores. Android seems to eat it up. Windows Phone or Android, that's really just personal preference. I mean, I use a Windows Phone device and an Android device on a daily basis. And, I tweeted this the other day. Every time I go back to my Android device, I find little things about it that I miss or that I take for granted. And then when I go back to my Windows Phone device, I find little things that are like, wow, I'm so glad to be back to this because I love this feature. So it's really, both of them are great. And I think it's just personal preference, really. If you like to do a lot of customization, Android is obviously the best choice for that. App selection also. But for, a minimalistic experience that's consistent across the board and smooth and beautiful, I think Windows Phone is great for that. Do you think that Windows Phone will get a screen capture function, example like the iPhone? I hope so. It was like with Android. Screen capture is one of those things that you love. It's so useful, and I never understood why Android didn't have that just automatically out of the box. Okay, what is your least favorite Android brand UI? My least favorite UI is Motorola's UI. I just don't like it. But Windows Phone does not support things like NFC. True, that's a good point. Currently, NFC is not extremely useful, so I don't see that as, dragging it down. But, yeah, that's a good point. Definitely a feature they could add. Okay, Sydney, do you consider the One X the equivalent to GSM Edge? For Edge, yeah, that would probably be the equivalent. How many minutes can you go over on the stream? I usually stop at an hour, just because that's our scheduled time, and I have other work to do also. After this, I have to get started on a review. I did the Ascend 2 I filmed that review today, and I need to edit it, get it up on phonedog.com. So I don't usually go over. Um, is Android going to focus on quality over quantity in Android in 2012? I don't know why I added a word there. I hope not. I hope they focus. Oh wait, no, yeah, okay, sorry, I misread. Yeah, I hope they focus on quality over quantity, but HTC has said that they will. Motorola said they will, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's only January, so it's too soon to tell. Um, Is the official Twitter for Windows Phone app any good? It's okay. It's not the best. You know, if you look at the ratings, I've used several Twitter apps for Windows Phone. I use Rowie right now, but I've used Seismic, Birdsong. I use the official Twitter app. I used Bees. I've used a couple of other ones, and the official Twitter app is fine, but really, if you look at the ratings, it's not that great. I think the highest rated ones are like Birdsong, Rowie, the one that I use, and Seismic. The only reason I use Rowie is because it has live tile capabilities, and not every Twitter app for Windows Phone has live tile capabilities, so that's why I use this one. Seismic doesn't have live tiles, which I don't understand, because you have a widget, so I mean, it would make sense to have live tiles. But anyway, the only thing is the Rowie Twitter app, the live tiles don't always work. It's like a hit and miss kind of thing. Okay. The Ascend 2 seems pretty crappy. It is. It is pretty crappy. I didn't say that in the review, obviously, but because I could do it in like 30 seconds. I would be like, this is the Ascend 2, and it's a piece of crap. Don't buy it. But that's not what I did. I was fair. I gave it a full review. I went over every feature. But yes, in the end, I did say you should probably look into something else. Do you have a second job? No, I don't. This is my full-time job. I get paid just like a full-time job. This is how I pay my bills. Do you have the NBA mobile app? No, I don't. I have ESPN. Android has 1. Oh, that was in response to somebody else. I guess we're talking about fragmentation. Well, BlackBerry was the first smartphone, then came the iPhone, and then Android, so it makes sense. Okay. Hi, Sydney. Greetings from Puerto Rico. Hi. How's it going? What ability would you rather possess, telekinesis or telepathy? I would rather telekinesis. Being able to move things with my mind, I think, would be like the most awesome thing in the world. Seriously, that's like my dream superhero, talent or whatever you want to call it. I would love to be telekinetic. I just think that's so awesome. Like, anytime I see movies like that, like X-Men, with Jean Grey, yes, I'm a loser, I know all this kind of crap. She's like my favorite character because I just that whole thing I think that's awesome. So yeah, it would be telekinesis. Is your husband concerned over all the creepy internet guys that comment on YouTube? Well, he doesn't read the comments, so he used whenever I first got this job and it was all new and everything, we would like sometimes read the comments, so he knows, what they're like, but I don't really think it bothers him because it's just the internet. People on the internet, it doesn't matter who it is. If it were me or any other person, they would say the same thing to any girl on the internet. So it's not like, they're just creepers for me. I mean, they're like that for everybody. So I don't take it personally if it's like a really nasty comment or if it's, inappropriate or whatever, because I know they would say that about anybody. So it doesn't creep me out or anything. I don't really think it bothers him either. How come you don't think the 16 megapixel phone won't look good? That's funny that you say that because the only reason you would know that is if you actually watched that show, and I explained why I felt that way in the show, so surely you saw that part. But if not, you can just go back and watch it. That was in last week's show. Sydney, can you ask Aaron if you can show us show us around the Windows Phone UI. Would like to see you do it. I don't is it really necessary? I mean, we've done plenty of reviews on Windows Phone devices, and whenever it first came out, the first few reviews, we spent more time on the OS, whereas now we kind of just do a basic overview. So I don't really think it's necessary, because I think he does. I mean, it's he does a good job of explaining it. It's pretty simple, really. Okay, so it's 5 o'clock my time, 6 o'clock Eastern time, or whatever time you are around the world. So it is time to go. But thank you guys for showing up. I had a great time. It was awesome. I will see you guys next week, same time, same place, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Ustream. I will be posting this on YouTube, so if you're on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. I'll be reading those. You can follow me on Twitter if I missed your question or I missed your comment or whatever. My screen name is phonedog_Sydney. And I think that's it. So I will see you guys next week. Bye.